From the PSIA-AASI satellite studios in Hood River, Oregon, I'm George Thomas, and we are visiting with team member Kevin Jordan. And we're not talking about skiing today. I guess we just did, but we're kind of having our annual mountain bike chat.
Yeah, no, it's great. Thanks, George. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I look forward to always look forward to talking with you, chatting about different things. But once this summer, we always talk about mountain bikes or some kind of biking. So I'm looking forward to see where we go.
Speaking of which, you're just back from a ride, correct?
Yeah, I was actually thinking like, oh, maybe I could do it. My family's actually back east, so I go on these like long kind of bike rides, and then I listen to uh different podcasts or books on tape or whatever as I go. So I actually was listening to your Tiny Habits one on the way down. It's like this is great.
That's awesome. So tell us about the Aspen Mountain Bike School. And it is mountain bike school there, correct? Or is it
Yeah.
downhill? Do you really put a focus on a certain type of riding?
Yeah, no, so we have a bike school. I've been involved in the bike school for about 15 years. And so the story of the whole bike school is we really try to make everybody's dreams come true on two wheels. So we'll teach private lessons from like there's actually a 3-year-old tomorrow, like learning to make that transition from like a strider bike to a pedal bike. That's like one lesson that's just happening tomorrow. And then we have some downhill or like gravity riding. We have a cross country or kind of mountain bike or bike handling skills camp. So we have a lot of kids programming, but we really try to just get people better at biking, period. So it's not, we do have a bike park, which I know sometimes like that can be a little intimidating because people see all the pads and the full face helmet and all that stuff. And it's more like, yeah, there's a lot of friction in the summertime. There's more so than in the winter time. So we do wear some pads or maybe some pants, but it's not just trying to do bike park stuff. We try to get people out on the trails. But our elevation is about 8,000 feet and we'll go up to about 10 or a couple places like 11 that we can kind of go to. So if you come from sea level, that may zap your energy pretty quick. But the e-bikes, like we're looking at that, we don't have necessarily the permission yet to get them around, but we're definitely talking about, using some of those things. I'm personally like for them because I think they increase people's range, or if they have something going on, or using that example coming from sea level to elevation, like it's just now you can kind of keep up with your friends. So I know there's some purists out there probably listening. No, I would never ride one of those things, but biking is biking and it's fun.
So we've got to talk about e-bikes in just a few seconds. But before, I want to talk about the Strider bikes because I think those things were brilliant and are brilliant. Have you noticed a change in the age of children that are able to ride because of the Strider bike?
Oh yeah, like we've actually lowered some of our ages. So we are our cross country program, or let's call it more like trail riding. Like they're going to go on trails. They might do some bike paths. We start as early as 5 years old, and then in the bike park, kind of downhill gravity area, we start at technically it's 8, but we made a lot of exception for 7-year-olds. It may also happen that I have a daughter who's 7 as well, so there might be some exceptions, to getting them in there. But one of the things that we've done is we also have a licensed day camp childcare that we basically partner with, and there's some basically their Thursday activities to go ride strider bikes. Like
Oh,
that's
you
what they
have
do.
Strider bikes there at the
Yeah,
mountain.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So like more like at the one of the parking lots there. But you see a lot of kids, and it's made a difference. So my kids, I have 2 kids. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, and both of them have learned how to pedal a bike without training wheels. And so how the progression kind of worked, and I was a little like impatient when it came to like buying bikes. I was always trying to buy like the next bike. So they started off with basically a strider bike, and then there was another brand which I asked the guy. They said it's Commensal, but everybody thinks it's Commensal, but it's Commensal. And they had this little what they call a push bike, so like a strider bike, no pedals, but it came with a hydraulic disc brake in the rear, so it actually had a brake. So Snowmass, if you've ever been to Snowmass, it's actually pretty hilly. There's not a lot of, Aspen is the city of Aspen is a little bit flatter, like kind of like a little wider valley in Aspen, but then there's hills all around it, hills like mountains all around it. So we kind of needed a break. So my kids actually learned how to like use a brake first before they learned how to pedal. And then they transitioned to a 14-inch pedal bike. But because I was so impatient, I couldn't wait for the next year where they came out with the disc brake. So they had like the V brakes. But one of the benefits from that was like it didn't have a ton of stopping power. So now they knew how to brake and they learned how to pedal. And how we actually taught them how to pedal was we hooked it up to a trainer, and I had to like elevate the front wheel a little bit. So I actually used one of the training potties. My son was like 3 years old, 2 to 3 years old. And so he's just like pedaling, like I made it a stationary bike. And then when he was ready, I just kind of like took the trainer off and just said, okay. And he's like, see ya. And he went for it. And it's like, they totally understood how to balance. So we've seen a big difference. It's, kids are learning quicker. They have some more skills. And then we try to transfer some of those skills into dirt, on the dirt where the traction isn't as good. So it's pretty cool.
So e-bikes, I've been going up a few times, a long steep climb, and someone just goes flying by. Hey, how you doing? I'm like, well, I was doing good until you passed me, looking like you're not working at. Oh, you're coasting right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah.
And of course, there's a little, but I love e-bikes. Hood River is nothing but really steep hills all around. And e-bikes have really opened up the cycling community to all sorts of shapes, sizes, and fitness. And I think it's great because people can get out now and
Yeah.
enjoy the beautiful roads and trails around here that they're paved, but people are able to get out and ride something and have fun where they normally wouldn't, or wouldn't have been able to in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I think there's kind of two schools of thoughts, but I look at it more as the e-bike as like a teaching tool. So right now, currently, like we're in a ski area, we're on U.S. Forest Service land. We have some town trails, and then we have the county trails as well, and they all kind of, it's very confusing on the map of who owns what and where you can do stuff. But right now, e-bikes in the valley are just rated to bike paths and some of like the work roads, but they're not allowed on any of the trails. And I say that hopefully be like yet. And the reason being is that if you go, so Fruta is about 2 hours away from where we live, and there's a lot of BLM land, and BLM is a different agency, so they allow e-bikes, and you see them there everywhere. So the way that I think about it is I can tell a story of how, so me helping to run the bike school, there was a couple of years ago in the fall, there's a woman who was here. Her name's Eileen, and I can't remember her last name, but she's probably okay if I tell the story. She was here for a wedding. She's from Florida. She knew she was admittedly a little bit out of shape. And she's like, I want to go see, a trail with some of the aspen leaves turn yellow in the fall. So she wants to see some of the fall foliage. Great. So we got a plan. And normally I'm the guy who kind of gives everybody a ride to, shuttle. So, but I couldn't give myself a ride and shuttle them and bike and everything. So I was like, I'll just bike with her. So I tried to think like creatively how I could take out as much climbing as humanly possible, because I was trying to get to a trail that would just contour the mountain and take us out to a really good vista, really good viewpoint. And we started to pedal a little bit, and I was like, it's not going so great. So we'll hop on this little lift. So we hopped on a little lift, and then I basically found like some numbered like parking lots, and like just kind of traversed our way through the parking lots. And then after the parking lots are there, you're kind of done, and you have like this. It's a sidewalk, but it's like it's nearly vertical, like walking up the thing. I was like, okay, hop off, you just walk, I'll push your bike up. And so we finally got up there. And once we got up there, which took us a little bit of time, and I got her on the trail, we got out, and now she's in the aspen trees. Now she went to the vista, and she had like the best time ever. But it's the one time that I was like, I really wish I had an e-bike, because all she needed was just a little assist on the pedaling and on the climb, and just so she could kind of keep up. And she's coming from literally sea level. So there's different types of e-bikes. There's a class 1, class 2, class 3. Class 1 is like a pedal assist, so you have to be pedaling for the motor, to work. And then class 2 has like a throttle. So I think there's different types, but what I've seen is, people who are maybe they've mountain biked, but they don't have like in the tank as much as, a little bit maybe on the older side, like they just either increases the range or it increases the idea of like where they could go. So they could go on like a 50-mile bike ride, no problem. They have a little bit of a motor when things get hard and that kind of stuff. But I totally hear your point of like you get passed by one of them. It's like, oh, come on, I've been working here for this whole time. So I get both sides, but I think it's just something that we're looking at it in the bike school, and if the opportunities present itself, we would love to do some guided tours. And I think some other resorts, already offer that, but they might be on different lands or private lands. So we'll see, but it's definitely headed that way.
Yeah, what you bring up, I really see that as a real benefit of the e-bike is just expanding. But no, I don't like them when they're riding down the sidewalk on an e-bike or on you see them going by not pedaling with like two kids on and they're doing 30 plus. And it's like, that's a motorized vehicle.
There's a lot of power in some of them. I remember one of the ones I got on, I like hit the throttle and almost like looped out. I was like, whoa, there's a lot of power, but they keep getting lighter and better and longer range and all that stuff. I don't have one. I bought a fat tire bike that I use to commute, which is like has studded tires, and I'm about like a mile-ish away from the lifts. So I do get to ride that. But I also wish there's some mornings that maybe I'm running behind schedule a little bit. And it's like, I wish I had the e-bike motor so I don't show up just so hot and like sweaty and it's like 12 degrees outside, and I'm like, ah.
Now, Kevin, with the downhill school, you do at least make people earn the coast down, right? You don't let them ride the chairlift up, do you?
Yeah, no. So the way like a bike park works, we have 3 different lifts that kind of help you. And if you think about that, it's just like a really expensive e-bike, it's like running off of electricity and it's bringing you up there. And the way to think about it is it's not about like trying to huck yourself everywhere. It's more about like learning descending skills. There's different types of trails. There's some stuff called like free ride or the kind of more flow. So they're like machine built. So they usually use these mini excavators and kind of, a little wider, a little flatter, a little smoother. And then they have other things called technical trails, which are a little bit more done, via hand or a little bit more down the fall line, a little rockier, some more routes. So there's different types of trails within, an existing bike park. There's also cross country trails and a whole network that kind of go back and forth. So some of the coaches, we try to put together like how many different trails could we ride in one descent down. And I think the record so far has been seven different trails that we kind of connect to.
And on just one ride down.
On one ride down. Yeah. And you're just like doing little sections of different things. But basically what happens is people show up and they're like, well, I already know how to ride a bike. So how hard can it be? And you're like, okay, well, would you like some coaching? Would you like us to help you? And what they don't realize is that you're going to spend a little bit more time when you're descending. You're going to spend a little bit more time standing up, like on your bike, because when you're sitting down and you're balancing from the saddle is further away from the ground than your, what they call the bottom bracket, where the 2 cranks of your pedals come together. And that's what you kind of balance through, which is closer to the ground. So there's a couple of tricks. Like yesterday I took out, this, one of our woman who works in the rental shop, her boyfriend's visiting, and she's like, can you teach him? I'm like, yeah, absolutely, no problem, take him out. And all I did was show him how to stand up on his bike. There's another little trick that we do, but like a lot of times people think like they need the ball of their foot, the widest part on the pedal, and that's not a bad idea if you're going to try to pedal a lot. But if you're wearing flat shoes, you're not actually connected to the pedals. You can actually move your foot forward and it will stack your bones just a little bit better. So you can kind of survive's not the right word, but like last longer with energy and everything. So we worked on that and we worked on braking. And so I got him really comfortable with using his rear brake. I also taught him that, there might be a time that he actually will skid, that may happen. And everybody thinks, oh, skidding's bad and you don't have any control and you don't have any traction. And that's all true. However, it's going to happen. So we might as well teach them how to do it or how to get out of a skid so they're not freaked out, because that's usually what happens to beginners. They get a little freaked out if they have a little bit of skidding going on. And then we work on a little bit on some body position, where if you actually like get a little lower, a little bit more stable, and you actually like kind of drop like your arms and your elbows, you can actually brace against the handlebars. And if you brace against the handlebars and you use your front brake, you can keep traction on the front wheel, and that's what really prevents you from flying over the handlebars. So this whole long progression where I was just working with him on the rear brake, like he's doing laps. Now, granted, he's 20 something years old, pretty fit guy from Argentina. It's like, okay, this is going great. And then it's like, I'm going to show you how to do this body position thing. And then I'm going to show you how to use your front brake and show you how important the front brake is. Because a lot of people think I shouldn't use my front brake, because I've used it once. I used it really quickly and it went flying over the handlebars. And it's like, well, if I was to choose between losing one brake, like this has both happened to me, because maybe my brakes haven't been bled in a while, and so I just kind of lost them. I would much rather lose my rear brake than my front brake, because my front brake has all my stopping power. So it feels a lot better when I have my front brake. And so we just coach people to get really comfortable with that. And then we can descend and look at terrain and everything else. But that's like there's a lot of other things, but those are like the two main things that we focused on yesterday. And he came down the green trail, he's all good. He's like, that was awesome. That was super fun. And then we went back up and worked our way up to some blue trails. So it was pretty cool.
So how does this work with your instructors? When you bring people in, I mean, you would not want me teaching a downhill lesson. So
yeah.
Do people learn different, areas of the mountain where they're comfortable, or do you set them up where their skills can really be put into the best use? I mean, I would love to work with somebody on cross country,
Sure.
more on road.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a couple road cycling privates. There's a couple places that we have. So we have a trail network that's outside of the bike park, and then we have the bike park, which is on the mountain, and we have permits to coach and everything. But number one, we provide some training. Pretty much all of our staff, with the exception of, we have some coach assistants. These are like high school kids, or high school young men and women that kind of help us and like kind of tag along with some of the kids programming, just so they're an extra set of eyes and ears. But we'll do training. We do that. We tend to actually do that in some trail networks, because the bike park's not open till like the middle of June. Because we actually have a agreement with the U.S. Forest Service that all the elk in the area, they're having babies, so it's elk calving season, and so we can't actually open until that has passed. But we'll do training, and then we've partnered with PMBIA, which is Professional Mountain Bike Instructors Association. There's another organization, BICP, Bike Instructor Certification Program. We just had an opportunity to partner with PMBIA. That's kind of why we went with them, and so a majority of our coaches are certified. They actually have 4 levels of coaching. So they have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. And there's only, I think, around 50 level 4s in the entire world. So and we have one of them. It's not me, it's someone else. It's Eric Obermeyer. He's amazing. And so, and that is like a whole another course. But the brilliance behind like a level 1 certification is that you can actually run it in a trail network, so in a cross country kind of trail network, or you can run it in a bike park. It doesn't matter, you can run it in either, because some of the example lessons that you teach are like how to climb while seated, how to maybe work on a more efficient cadence, so that's like the revolution in the RPMs, and being able to shift some gears, and then how to descend or how to corner. So kind of very basic stuff, but the brilliance is like you can do it in a bike park, or you can do it in a trail network. And for example, when I was certifying down my level 1, the first day it snowed, and so the bike park, it was June, but it snowed in Colorado, and the bike park was closed because all the trails were super wet and super muddy, so we couldn't ride there. So we went to a trail network, and we tried to ride all the south facing trails, the ones that dried out the quickest. We had to wait a little bit, but then they got pretty good. And that was kind of one of the best things for us, because we don't think of the bike school as just downhill. Yes, we have a bike park, but that's just a tool. to help us teach. It's like we can do cross country. We have a lot of cross country requests, but again, it's probably for the people who are either living here already or they want to. For example, we do offer some locals clinics, and there's always a group that wants to do some kind of lift serve cross country. So they take the lift up, they get a little bit of a bump in elevation, and then they work on some of the trails that contour the mountain, go from one side to the other, and they're working on things the entire way. So it's pretty neat because it's like, it's newer that we've been doing skiing for a long time, but the bike park, the first trail was built in 2011. So it's relatively new.
I know I ask you this question every year, but it seems the percentage keeps going up. What percentage of your bike school instructors are also instructors throughout the winter? Because you're really showing that you can get some year-round employment there.
Yeah. I would say, I don't know the exact percentage, but I would say it's probably in the 90%. So, but what's interesting
That
is
high now.
a lot of times,
Wow.
yeah. Yeah. So a lot of times what we do is we hire the people from winter, and they may or may not be the best biker, and that's okay. We can work on that. But one of the things that I always look for is, how good are they at coaching someone who might be a little fearful or in terrain or those kind of things. But what we've noticed this year is we've hired a couple people who are going to start with us in the winter, but they had a big bike experience, and those have been some of the best like new hires that we have hired because they already get the whole industry. They've already worked at other places, and they're coming in, and it's amazing. It's like we kind of get to test drive them in the summer before they come here in the winter, and they're learning all our systems and everything. And it's one of those things. We have two of those that we hired this summer for bike school, and then they're also going to be in ski and snowboard school this winter. So it's really cool. Like they're learning all the logistics or all the operation stuff more so than any of the new hires that we're going to see in December. And so they can actually like coach the other new hires on, this is how we do our, this is how we get paid. This is how we roster. This is how we create class lists, these kind of things. So it's really neat to see them. And they've been some of the best hires that we've ever really hired.
So what's your time between seasons? When ski season ends, I'm assuming it's usually in April. When
Yeah.
does bike season start? And then when bike season ends, how much of a gap is there before ski and ride season kicks in again?
Yeah. Good question. So typically, there's a couple weeks like end of April, we're finishing up ski school stuff. Then I get a couple weeks off in May, and they start kind of middle of May. And that's a lot of planning, hiring. And then we do training at the end of May, early June. And then we actually kick off our cross country or our trail programming first. And then the bike park opens. It's all this like staggered openings. And we run daily operations 7 days a week from June 21st through Labor Day for the bike park. We run cross country and trail programming before that, like June 3rd. So that's kind of 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, because that's when the kids have time and they like doing things with their families on the weekends. And then we do Friday, Saturday, Sundays throughout the weekends in September, which is some of the best time to ride. And then we get a little bit of a break, and it's really kind of like November 1st is when I'm starting back up with the ski school operations and those kind of things. But speaking of, mountain biking is awesome and I love it, but skiing is definitely some of the first love. I'm actually leaving on soon, the end of this week, to go to Portillo to go skiing. So I can't wait, but I'm like, I'm gonna miss like a week the bike season, but that's okay because I get to ski and come back.
I believe I'll be checking in with you from Portillo.
It'd be great. We could do something with me and Katie. It would be great, and Rogue and Michael. It'd be great to get us all on. So for sure.
Well, anything you want to say in conclusion about Aspen's bike school?
Yeah, well, I think like just bike schools in general, it's a lot of people don't think they need a lesson because they already know how to ride a bike. But I would encourage you to if you visit a different resort, if you wanted to try, bike park, it's get a coach, get a guide so they can show you around because they know how to connect, different trails together. Like I said, like, the 7 different routes down, 7 different trails to like have one really epic ride down. And you'll learn something along the way, maybe something about some technique. There's no real right or wrong technique. There's just a lot of PMBIA kind of distills like these pros and cons. So there's like pros of doing it this way versus, and maybe some cons of doing that. So, you know, just try it and see what you think. There's a lot of cool opportunities out there. I know Central, I think, runs like a mountain biking crossover clinic. Rocky Mountain does. It's called a Wheels Up clinic, where you can actually go and mountain bike, and then we relate everything back to skiing or snowboarding or just snow sports in general. So it's really cool. It's like kind of a put your money where your mouth is clinic, where we talk about teaching for transfer all the time. So we actually do a different sport and then try to relate everything back. So look for some opportunities like that out in the different regions. And, you know, dirt isn't the new snow.
Well, team member Kevin Jordan, thanks so much for joining us on First Share. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, George. Anytime.
From the PSIA-AASI Satellite Studios in Hood River, Oregon, I'm George Thomas.